If you're someone who has big goals in life, whether it be getting in shape, that career development, or just some sort of personal goal that's important to you and you just can't seem to finish it off, you get started, you get some momentum going, and then whether it's a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, 3 months later, you haven't quite hit the end goal yet, but all of a sudden your progress stalls and your adherence goes down, or you just stop trying as hard, basically. I want to share some insight on why this happens from my experience for over the last 4 or 5 years coaching over 300 Asian men, probably just like you, who struggle with this same problem that you're going through right now. If you're like a lot of my clients, which I'm assuming you watching this right now, you probably are, you work full time, you got family, you have friends, you have a social life, you have work commitments, you maybe or maybe don't have a partner, but you are sort of a very social person in nature where you have things come up on the weekend, you have things that come out throughout the week, you have deadlines, you have stresses. And so if that is you, there's usually a very clear reason why your momentum stops or you hit this big wall that you can't seem to get over. And I'll talk about this from a perspective of you wanting to get in shape or someone who does want to get in shape. The biggest culprit of your progress slowing down or you hitting a wall is because whatever you're doing to try and achieve that progress, let's say with the fat loss, whatever diet you're doing, whatever training methodology you're following, whatever habits you're putting in place, do not actually align with where you are right now in your life, your values, your current lifestyle, your social network. There's a big misalignment between what you're trying to do and I guess where you're starting at right now. And look, it's not your fault. When you're hungry for progress, like I know you are, what ends up happening is you read all this stuff online, you watch all these videos, you ask your friends for advice, people who have done the things that you want to do, you listen to them, or with good intention. And then because you're so hungry for progress, or in some cases even so desperate to progress, you end up latching onto whatever information you find, hoping that that's going to be the magic bullet to your problem. Now, the tricky thing with this is the people that you're watching, the people that you're taking advice from, they don't actually know who you are as a person. They don't know what your lifestyle is like. You don't know what their lifestyle is like. You don't know where their starting point was. There's so many pieces of information that are missing in this current approach right now, in this current strategy. And so as a result, you end up doing something that might not necessarily be right for you. Now, this might be okay for a few weeks, a few months. It might work to get a first few kilos off or get you into a nice routine for a short period of time. But what ends up happening is the moment something in your lifestyle that has always been there, for example, the family dinners, the social events, the birthday parties, that stuff's always going to be in your life. The moment they start coming back in again, because there's such a big gap between what you're doing and what you really need to be doing for your lifestyle, it gives all the reason to fall off track. That one meal off becomes a whole week off. That 1 week off becomes a whole month off. Because what you've been trying to do only really works in perfect conditions. You can cut out the rice for as long as you want, but the moment you have dinner with your mum, or you go out for a nice meal with your boys, and you go to the local Korean barbecue joint, have some soju, have some drinks, all of a sudden you throw all that out the window and there's no balance. And so what's really happening here is almost an all in or all out mentality where you're doing things, and yes, they might be able to help you get there, but they're so extreme in sense that it's so drastically different to who you are as a person and your culture and your values and your lifestyle that basically anytime there's a minor inconvenience, you end up falling off track and you find reason not to continue it. So I might have went in a bit of a long-winded response, but basically there's 2 points here. The first is whatever you're trying to do and whatever you're listening to doesn't actually align with how you live your life. And yes, you need to make some changes, but they shouldn't be so drastically different to how you live with your friends, how you enjoy life with your family. It needs to align with those aspects because you can't just neglect them for months and months and months until you hit your goal. But then the second side of that is that you're only able to do these things under perfect conditions. You're only able to cut out rice when there's no rice in front of you. You're only able to train 7 days a week when the work week clears up and you have all the time in the world to train 7 days a week. So these 2 points here, not having a system that aligns with who you are and how you live your life, and second, only being able to work under perfect conditions is the exact reason why you keep falling off track. So now that we know the 2 root causes of why you can't seem to stay on track or you have a strong start and then you fall off track, I'm going to give you a solution, and this is how I generally help my clients overcome this as well, and I'm confident this is going to help you with your problem right here. So we'll address the misalignment when it comes to your current approach alongside your lifestyle. Look, at the end of the day, you achieving your goals is going to come to some sacrifices. You want to lose 20 kilos, you want to get those abs, you want to build more muscle. It is going to come at the cost of how you used to live, but it should not come at the cost of everything. So you need to determine what are the values that you really want to hold dear to you. What are the cultural aspects of how you live your life that are genuinely non-negotiable. And then we want to figure out a strategy that's going to allow you to incorporate that into the strategy that you have in place to get you to in shape or get you the fat loss result. And that way it doesn't feel like such a big hurdle or so much resistance in order for you to make those changes. So for example, I'm going to keep going back to cutting out rice because it seems like that's what you think you always need to do when it comes to losing fat. The chances are you're not going to cut out rice for the rest of your life, right? You're not going to cut out eating dinner with your family for the rest of your life. And so rather than seeing it as, for the next 16 weeks, I'm going to just cut out all this stuff only to have it be like an elastic band that you're just pulling further and further back, only for it to rebound at some point. We want to figure out how to incorporate this into how you get results now. How do we incorporate these things so that it doesn't feel so hard for you to stick to even after you get the result? Because the result is only the first milestone. You also need to consider what happens after the diet, after the program, after the result. How do you make sure that you build a new lifestyle that allows you to sustain that? So rather than cutting out rice entirely, if you know that that's your kryptonite, that's the one that you keep overeating on and you can't seem to control, learn to portion control. Learn to track your calories, learn to eye things out, learn to have an idea of when you're 80% full. Learn to actually do these things that signal to you that you are able to eat rice and it won't deviate you from your progress. I'll give you an example. I have a dinner with my family every single Monday night, with my cousins, with my grandma, with my mum, with my sister. Everyone's there. We all share, we all have a meal around the table, and that's our family time. If I was dieting, I would not say that I'm not going to go to this family dinner in exchange to lose 1 kilo that week. To me, it's just not worth it. Instead, I want to find a way to incorporate that into my diet. And so that way I can still live the life that I normally have and the routine that I have whilst making steps in the right direction. So what I'd do is I would budget in that dinner as much as I can. I'd ask beforehand, what are we eating? I'd get a really good idea of, I guess, what my day is going to look like. I'll make sure to cut calories out early in the day so that way it budgets in more calories later in the day for that dinner. Very simple strategy. Didn't need me to stop eating dinner with my family, didn't need me to stop eating my grandma's food, which I absolutely love, and I was still able to lose 10 kilos plus and get in great shape while doing this. Just know, you achieving your goals doesn't need to come at the sacrifice of memories and the things that you value. All it really comes down to is having better preparation. If you prepare better, you'll be less emotionally invested into your decision making. You'll actually have a plan going into the outing or going into deviation, going into the holiday, going into these periods of your life where it isn't your normal routine in a sense, whether it be work picking up like crazy. If you have a plan going into that, knowing that work's gonna be pretty fucking crazy for you this week, and you know you can't fully adhere to the plan that you normally adhere to, then make a modification, make an adjustment. That's what this is all about. Those who consistently progress towards their goal are those who are able to consistently prepare for whatever, I guess, roadblocks that they know are coming up, and that will allow them to actually stay on track no matter what's actually happening in their day-to-day life. So just to summarize the first half of this problem, the big reason why you're having a hard time staying on track long enough to get to the end goal is because whatever you're doing is not something that you can see yourself doing for the rest of your life. You can do it for a few weeks, a few months, but what will end up happening is you're gonna relapse, or you're gonna rebound the moment you try to live like a normal person or live like the normal version of you again. And so the solution, find a system that accommodates to the things that you deem valuable in your life, whether it is the dinner with the family, whether it is going out on the weekend with your friends. Now, don't get me wrong, we need to make sure we're making good decisions. You need to make sure you are being proactive in unlearning a lot of the bad habits that you have, but it does not mean you need to sacrifice everything to get there. If you can figure that out, now all of a sudden it won't feel like you're fighting an uphill battle and you're not just relying on willpower alone. Because trust me, willpower is going to run out at some point, whether it is that after you hit the goal and you end up bouncing back, or it happens midway through you hitting the goal and you end up never getting there to begin with. Again, relating to the fat loss example, the biggest problem that people have and the biggest problem that you have right now is not simply losing the fat itself, it's how do you lose it and keep it off for the rest of your life. And that simply comes down to doing things that are aligned with your culture, your values, and your lifestyle. The second part of this problem is that you only do things under perfect conditions. The moment something happens in your life that creates some sort of stress, some minor inconvenience, you basically throw everything out the window and just say, fuck it, I can't do this. I'm just gonna go back to how I was before. An analogy I can give you here that's gonna demonstrate how silly this sounds. An analogy I can give you here that's gonna demonstrate how silly this really is. It's almost like you pop one tire while you're driving, you get out of the car, you see that pop tire, and you're like, fuck, I might just, well, and you go, fuck it, I'm just gonna pop the next 3 tires because this first one popped to begin with. This is basically the all-in or all-out mentality. I know you've heard this before as well. It's a very cliche message in the fitness industry, yet so many people, including yourself, are still falling into this trap. Let me give you a perspective shift that's gonna get you out of this mindset. So if we're talking about building lifelong sustainable habits, things that actually stick with you and you be able to get the results you want and actually keeping them for the rest of your life, the best example I can give you that demonstrates that imperfect, consistent action is always going to trump trying to be perfect all the time is you brushing your teeth and you learning that habit of brushing your teeth. Think about it from this perspective. When you were young, living at home with your parents, 7, 8, 9 years old, I want you to ask yourself this question. Did you brush your teeth perfectly every single morning and every single night? Or did you sometimes brush it for 1 second, tell your parents that you did it and walk off and go to sleep? I know that you weren't perfect. And anyone else who watches this video, I know they're not going to be perfect with that as well. And yet somehow, in your 20s and your 30s, you're still brushing your teeth every morning, every night, no questions asked, and now you do it perfectly. And I hope the last time you got a cavity was years and years and years ago. Now, this is not a random example. The reason why I'm saying this to you is because you do not need to be perfect to make lifelong habits stick. All you need to do is be consistent. All you need to do is show up to do that task over a long enough time period, and over time it's going to get ingrained in you to the point where you don't even have to think about it anymore. Think about it this way, you don't motivate yourself to brush your teeth in the morning, you just wake up and you go do it. And then through enough repetition, through enough reminders to go do it, now it feels weirder for you not to do it than it does to actually do it. Your fitness, whatever personal goals that require certain habits are no different. If you want to be someone who trains 4 times a week consistently because that fits into your lifestyle, don't see it as the moment that you can't hit one day and go to the day that you say you'll go as a means to throw out the rest of the week. Instead, all that means is you need to adjust, you need to pivot the days that you train, you need to push it to the next day, you need to change the time that you train. You're just constantly reiterating what the routine is going to be, and over enough time where you're actually proactively trying to fix it, you will eventually find a system that actually works for you and is adaptable with you because, let's be honest, your life and your day-to-day life is not the same every single week. There'll be days where you are stressed out. There'll be days where you just simply cannot be fucked. There'll be days where you get in a fight with a partner, you get told off at work, you have a rough day at work. There are so many things in your life, and to assume that you're going to be able to do things under perfect conditions is basically saying that you're just destined to fail. You might as well just accept that you're never going to hit the goal to begin with. So stop trying to be perfect. It's not going to happen. I'm telling you right now, if you try to be perfect, what's going to end up happening is you're going to dread whatever you're doing because the moment it doesn't feel perfect is the moment that you start making excuses as to why you can't continue. And rather than seeing imperfect weeks as issues and problems, see them as opportunities for you to learn how to be more consistent through imperfect conditions. And if you can do that, I'm so confident to say that you're going to feel so much more rewarded. You're going to feel so much more rewarded and you're going to feel so much more fulfilled knowing that you didn't give up and you found a way to work through a situation where in the past you would have made an excuse not to do so. And this translates to basically every other aspect of your life. It really just fundamentally comes down to being a more disciplined person. Discipline is a word that gets thrown around way too much. I'm not talking about the no pain, no gain style of discipline where you beat yourself up and you put yourself through the trenches for absolutely no reason. What I'm simply talking about is doing the thing that is inconvenient, doing the thing that you don't necessarily want to do, but knowing that you should do it and doing it anyway. Because think about it, any goal, anything that you deem important to you is going to require a level of discipline. And the best place to start with is your fitness. If you can show up to the gym where you don't feel like it after a long day at work, or show up 5 a.m. in the morning when you'd rather be sleeping in, do that through enough times and you're training up that discipline muscle now. Same thing with your food. You see all your friends eating absolute shit, absolute garbage, drinking the night away, but you know you are only meant to have 1 slice of pizza and 2 drinks at dinner. If you can uphold that, what's going to end up happening is you're going to leave that dinner, you're going to walk away from that event, whatever it is, that situation, being very proud of yourself, knowing that you were able to commit to the plan that was in place for you and you followed through on your word. And this will apply to your work, this will apply to your career progression, it will apply to your personal life, your family life, your relationship. It's going to apply to all these aspects without you even realizing it, because now you're building up this version of you that is more disciplined, that doesn't make excuses, that shows up in imperfect conditions, where most people show only when things feel good. That is how you're going to tick off all the goals in your life that are actually meaningful enough to you to require a baseline of effort. And look, man, I know you've done this before. I know you can follow through a plan. The only issue is when you're not able to follow it for long enough to get the end outcome. And I know you know that feeling you get whenever you do follow the plan and life feels great. You feel proud of yourself. You get this surge of motivation. You get this surge of productivity. You feel like you're actually on track. You feel locked in, like most guys are saying nowadays. You can have that feeling for the rest of your life by just simply following what I've shared in this video, which is having a system that aligns with how you're living your life now. And yes, encourages change, but in a way that's actually sustainable and it isn't so black and white. And more importantly, not having that all in or all out mentality anymore. Be all in on your goal, but don't be all in on only being able to do things when they're perfect. Because what's going to end up happening is you're going to keep disrupting your pattern. You're going to lose momentum. And every time you lose momentum, it's going to feel really hard to get yourself back on track. And that time that's being spent not being on track is time being wasted actually having the results that you want. So I hope that helps you out with this problem that you're going through. Just know you're not alone. You becoming your best self is not easy, but it is simple in nature. It really just comes down to you putting in the work when no one's watching, addressing these weaknesses and these gaps you have right now in what you're doing. And if you can do that and do it for a long enough time period, you are going to achieve the results that you want and tick off the goals that you want.